The name's Fields. Craig Fields.
And I'm Long. David Long.
And you're listening to a very special episode of Is It Worth It? The film review podcast, as it's our James Bond special.
That's right, Craig. We will talk Bond. We will talk Daniel Craig's Bond. And most importantly, we will review the newly released No Time to Die.
Indeed, we shall. Also, as a special episode, there's no time for the usual pleasantries, but I can confirm we are both well. We have a full menagerie of animals, including and not limited to a rabbit and a dragonfly in the studio tonight. And we are both very excited for this episode.
That we are, dearest Craig, that we are. So, without further delay, let's talk Bond. James Bond. In 1953, James Bond was born when Ian Fleming published his first novel, Casino Royale.
In 1954, a live television episode entitled Casino Royale is released, and the first actor to play the spy was actually an American, and it was in the episode of the American dramatic anthology series Climax. The show was the first screen adaptation of a James Bond novel and starred Barry Nelson.
In 1962, Eon Productions released Dr. No, its first adaptation of Ian Fleming's James Bond novels, and the spy was portrayed by none other than Sean Connery. Sean Connery would go on to play James Bond between 1962 and 1967.
In 1967, Casino Royale, a comedy spy film originally produced by Columbia Pictures starring an ensemble cast of directors and actors, is released. It is set as a satire of the James Bond film series and the spy genre, and is loosely based on Ian Fleming's first James Bond novel. The film stars David Niven as the original Bond, Sir James Bond 007.
In 1969, George Lazenby becomes James Bond and remains, to this day, the only man to star in one James Bond film, which was Her Majesty's Secret Service.
By 1971, Sean Connery is back and he stars in Diamonds Are Forever, which is the seventh film in the official James Bond series.
Between 1973 and 1985, it's time for Roger Moore to flex his muscles in the now ever-popular role of Bond. This doesn't stop Sean Connery returning one last time in 1983 for his last film, Never Say Never Again.
By now, James Bond has become a household name, and between 1987 and 1989, Timothy Dalton plays Bond twice in The Living Daylights and License to Kill.
The year is now 1995 and Pierce Brosnan is cast as 007. Brosnan would go on to star in GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough and Die Another Day, which coincidentally was the first James Bond I ever saw in the cinema in 2002.
And this brings us up to date and the casting of Daniel Craig as James Bond. Craig has starred in Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and now No Time to Die.
Over these many years, with the use of his Walter PPK or the many gadgets that Q hands to him, 007 has killed hundreds of enemies. In 24 movies, James Bond has killed 597 people, according to Screen Rant. This is, of course, the number of kills before No Time to Die. Is Bond a killing machine in the new film? Is the film worth it? Stay tuned to find out.
The past isn't dead.
James, fate draws us back together. Now your enemy is my enemy.
His name is Safin.
And what does he want?
Revenge. Me.
When her secret finds its way out, it'll be the death of you.
You can imagine why I've come back to play.
There's a young lady in Santiago I want you to meet.
You're late.
When you're ready. Salute.
I met your new 00. She's a disarming young woman.
I get why you shot him.
Yeah, well, everyone tries at least once.
James Bond.
We both eradicate people to make the world a better place. I just want to be a little tidier.
Come on, Bond. Where the hell are you?
And that was a trailer clip from the latest James Bond film, No Time to Die. We are fresh out of the cinema. I say fresh. It was 23 hours ago, more or less, that we watched this film at a midnight screening. I didn't get home till 4 a.m.
Well, yeah, about 3:30 for me. I've actually snuck in a rewatch as well, Craig.
Very cheeky.
I took a cheeky half day at work, snuck in a rewatch, which I'm looking forward to talking about, because a rewatch, I think, is always very, very important when analysing a film.
Blimey. Well, you know, I would agree. I wish I could have seen it again myself, but I've had less than 4 hours sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm back in the studio with
and it's
David.
late as well here in the UK right now.
It's nearly 11 o'clock now. So here we go. We're going to kick this off with talking about Daniel Craig and our favourite Daniel Craig Bond film. David, would you like to kick off what your number one... Well, should we start at the bottom, actually?
Yeah, let's start at the bottom.
So we're not going to include No Time to Die in this until we've done the review, and we're going to look back over our favourite Bond film, Daniel Craig Bond films, and where that would slot into our collection of films and where we like them. So, David, what is your number 4 then?
So my number 4 is Quantum of Solace, directed by Mark Foster from 2008. It was Daniel Craig's second outing after Casino Royale. I just remember leaving the cinema and being a little bit disappointed with Quantum of Solace. Upon a rewatch a few years ago, I was more impressed with it. I remember a huge building exploding at the end and a man drinking oil. That's my summary of Quantum of Solace. There's problems with that film. We won't dive into them, but I haven't got the Rotten Tomato scores, but I think critically as well, it's sort of considered Craig's least favourite outing. So for me, Quantum of Solace, 2008, that comes in at number 4.
Yeah, and when you say Craig, you mean Daniel Craig, not Millie.
Yes. Yeah, imagine you as James Bond.
I'd be
balding,
great.
bellied.
Oh, dear. I'm super offended. Well. Anyway, coincidentally, David, my number 4 is also Quantum of Solace.
Wow.
I do remember being not unimpressed, but just disappointed in the sense that there was some pacing issues, I think. And I remember feeling quite bored with the film at certain points. And you should never be bored with a James Bond film.
No, that's one thing you should not be, is bored.
Yeah.
And Quantum of Solace, you're right, from memory, did have some pacing issues in there.
My number 3 then... Oh, David, did you forget to put your phone on silent?
I apologise.
Silence that phone. So my number 3 then is Spectre. So this comes in from Sam Mendes. Sam Mendes directed this. It's the second film that Sam Mendes directed.
Yeah.
I just remember not being disappointed, I just felt it wasn't as good as the first Sam Mendes film that he directed for Bond, or for Daniel Craig. And yeah, I don't know. I think there were more twists in the other films. I mean, it's difficult. I don't want to just sort of say which comes next. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Bizarrely, though, my number 3 is also Spectre. Now, I actually rewatched this with my dad the other day. A couple of things that stood out for me. Really like the opening sequence. Sam Mendes does it in that appearing to be one take. The camera follows our protagonist, 007, through this Carnival of the Dead in Mexico City.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a very good, engaging opening sequence. And what really struck me about Spectre was just some of the humour in there. Some of the humour in Spectre. One of my favourite bits is where Bond drives his Aston Martin into a river, ejects himself out of the top of the car, comes casually cruising down into an Italian city on a parachute. There's just a man picking up litter, putting it in the bin, and he's just like, good evening, and then just does his cufflinks and carries on walking. Really enjoyed Spectre upon a rewatch. Very, very happy for that to come in at number 3. no surprise then, my number 2 is actually Sam Mendes' 2012 Skyfall.
Mine too.
Oh wow! Okay, so we've literally we didn't know what each other's were going to be, but it seems that we've actually put them in the identical order. And look, Skyfall is a very, very good James Bond film.
Yep.
My favourite bit is when that old boy has the sawn-off shotgun and "Welcome to Scotland," which, if you've ever been to Scotland, it's the kind of place where you ask for a lager and lime and they say, "We don't do cocktails." It's a rough old place. It's a beautiful part of the world, by the way, Scotland. Very good for golf if you're into that, which I am, and I'm also very bad at. Just thought I'd let our listeners know. But Scotland's a beautiful part of the world. But Skyfall. The only reason, Casino Royale is better. Basically, there's not much at all wrong with Skyfall.
No,
Javier Bardem, I think he's tremendous in there. You are looking at me strangely. I have quoted the right Bond villain.
No. I'm looking at you strangely because, for me, why this comes in at number 2 is because it's an amazing Daniel Craig James Bond film because of the emotional attachment that this Bond has to certain characters.
Yes.
It's the most, I don't know, Bond without his armor on that we see. We see it in Casino Royale. He lets his guard down massively in Casino Royale, only to his detriment. But the reason why number 1 Casino Royale is there for me, revealing it there, is because it was the first Bond film that I saw in the cinema.
Oh wow!
First of all, it was the first Bond film that I really sort of felt, wow, this is what a spy thriller should be. And it I don't know, it was the beginning of Bond. It really was the beginning of Bond because for my generation, for lots of other reasons as well, but the way that it starts off in black and white and just the beautiful cinematography, and Daniel Craig just oozes just class, absolute class. And at that point, Daniel Craig was known, but relatively unknown in some realms. I suppose he's not as well known. And I don't know, it was uber cool. Like, it really was. And I think the whole gambling, like the casino, literally, the gambling, but the poker game, is just incredible. And I remember really getting into poker after that. And I just remember just watching it over and over again. When it came out, as soon as it came out on Blu-ray. This is the era when Sony brought out the PlayStation 4 with the Blu-ray, and the Casino Royale was bundled with it. Wow. It was, for me, I think that's what made, this is a whole other tangent, but I think it's what basically made the PlayStation 4 the most popular gaming console when that came out over the Xbox, that came out at the same time, because it had the Blu-ray player in it and they bundled it with Casino Royale. A little bit of
James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that just not just because of that, but this film for me is the ultimate James Bond film, as like a sandwich, like we say, but it's the bread part, but it's the really good bread part. Like, it's the best piece of bread on top that you could ever have in your entire life. And yeah, and I reiterate what you say. I mean, for me, Casino Royale, I just love everything about it. I love that we see this new era of Bond, this Daniel Craig era launched like a rocket into orbit. We'd come off the back of Pierce Brosnan's Bonds, where things had got a little bit silly, where we had things like invisible cars and some of the gadgets had got a little bit stupid, and we had John Cleese in there, and I love John Cleese, but some people didn't like him cast in Bond, thought he wasn't perfectly cast, and Craig comes in, this more serious Bond. Casino Royale, like you say, visually very, very smart, but the casino scenes are some of my favourite of any James Bond. I'm a gambling man, I like a bet. All in 6 million, that's my kind of bet. All in 6 million, that's a man's bet. I wish I had £6 million to go all in on. I don't.
And it's just a fantastic film. And like you said as well, it was the start of a new kind of Bond, in the sense that we saw Bond without his armour. We saw him fall
letting his guard down,
in love with a certain lady.
Vesper.
No spoilers as to what happened there. If you haven't seen Casino Royale and you're listening to this show, I'm very surprised.
I mean, we can spoil the hell out of those ones, I think.
Yeah, so he gets very attached to her, and she gets tied in with the new film as well. But yeah, for me, Casino Royale, also number one. That was not what I was expecting. I was expecting us to argue, debate, but should we move swiftly on?
Yeah, I mean, where do we go from here then? So from that, we want to talk about, I suppose, who might be the next James Bond. Let's do a bit of speculation. Now that Daniel Craig has moved on, No Time to Die is over, I suppose. Obviously, we haven't given our review part of that yet. We will delve into that. But it's just interesting. David has listed here some betting odds, of course, as to who might be the next James Bond. And this is very interesting. And
I won't dive too much into the actual odds themselves, but I can confirm that in the UK, the betting favourite to be next James Bond is Tom Hardy. He is the betting favourite, just a little bit bigger than 3-1. That's all I'll say. But he is the bookmakers' favourite. What does that mean? The bookmakers think that Tom Hardy will be the next James Bond. Thoughts on that firstly, Craig?
Just disagree. I think Tom Hardy is too much of a huge star, and I think if we work our way down the list, we don't need to put the betting on. We've got Tom Hardy in first, Henry Cavill second, Idris Elba in third. We have
Reggie Jean Page in fourth.
Reggie Jean Page in fourth. David, you want to go down from fifth?
Yeah, James Norton in fifth. Michael Fassbender in at number 6. Luke Evans is at 7. 8, Cillian Murphy. 9, Tom Hiddleston. And 10, Jack O'Connell. I could have listed many, many more. David Beckham is in the betting at 200-1.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Or 1,000-1, I think, actually. So there's loads of names, but they're the 10 that I narrowed it down to. Thoughts?
Well, looking at this list, I can pick out one person that I can almost guarantee that I think will be Bond, and it's James Norton. I think Reggie Jean Page is somebody that I think could also be Bond.
I totally agree with that.
But it's out of those two, if I'm honest. So everyone above those two, Idris Elba, Henry Cavill, Tom Hardy, far too famous. Henry Cavill would make a much better villain, I think. He was a villain in Mission Impossible with the big moustache, if you remember that.
Yes, I do,
yeah, I think he would be great as a villain in a Bond film. I think Tom Hardy far too famous.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say about the fame, because I was speaking to my dad about James Bond, about No Time to Die, about the franchise, about where it goes next, and it was him that was saying actually that historically James Bond hasn't been played by huge stars. It's actually been up and coming stars that have really become famous through the role of Bond. And I think if you're a film buff, you obviously know who Daniel Craig is. But I remember when it was announced, a lot of people would say, "Well, who is Daniel Craig?"
Yeah. I even think everybody. Reggie Jean Page is a very big household name at the minute. I think James Norton isn't so. I think we've reviewed a film on Cinema at Home that stars James Norton, and he was fantastic. It was Mr. Jones, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was an absolute great film.
An espionage spy thriller, and he was...
He wasn't a spy in it, so to speak, though, was he? He was a journalist who went out to Russia, and I think it was to Russia, actually. But he was writing on the famine that was going on out there, trying to raise awareness for it, because the government were...
hiding it, basically.
Well, yeah, covering it up. And it was a really brilliant film. Seek it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But James Norton in this film... James Norton... Altogether, I think he's my number one favourite, 100%. He's not as well known. He has the looks of a good Bond, I think, and I hate to say that, but he does look like a good Bond. Yeah, he has this if we're comparing him to Daniel Craig, he is a young Daniel Craig in a way. Do we want another Daniel Craig? No, but I think the way that he moves, the way he talks, I think he could be a very classy Bond, and that is what Bond is. I can't see, all right, below James Norton now, Michael Fassbender, I can't see. He is definitely far too famous as well, possibly slightly in an age bracket that I wouldn't want to see a new Bond in. Now, if they're rebooting Bond in a way that they might be doing it, which is completely from the beginning, perhaps, or I don't know where they're picking this up. Could this be an older Bond or a younger Bond? Because how they do this next is going to be very confusing. I'm hoping I'm not giving anything away by saying those things, but the way that the next Bond series is going to unfold, it's going to be hard to see how they do this. Luke Evans, again, I just don't see him being a Bond. Everyone's far too famous underneath, like Cillian Murphy, Tom Hiddleston, Jack O'Connell. Jack O'Connell, it's a possibility, but I just don't see him playing a Bond.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like my dad as well, we were talking about this. He was all over James Norton. And as every good gambler does, Craig, I've had some dodgy information, some inside information.
You were going to say you've placed a bet.
I haven't actually. But James Norton was the dodgy information that I had from a very unreputable source. Why this person would have any idea who the next James Bond...
Who is this person?
Fat Baz.
Who's Fat Baz?
Yeah, people are laughing now. Fat Baz is a reputable punter in the local community, and I've had good information that James Norton is going to be the next James Bond. If you're listening, Baz, thank you.
In the local community, you mean Hempstead?
Well, the gambling community in whole.
I mean,
but anyway,
surely that's a huge community.
It's a rather large community. But all jokes aside, for both me and for both Craig, James Norton is our sort of pick, prediction, wizardry, our Mystic Meg look at who potentially the next James Bond could be.
And now it's time to delve into No Time to Die, directed by Cary Joji Fukunaga, and we've got a number of writers on board here where I'm going to delve in here because Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, Cary Joji Fukunaga and Phoebe Waller-Bridge all have their names attached to the script. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, should I say, was brought in to make some tweaks. Some interesting facts here. There were some creative differences made. Danny Boyle was on set to direct the film originally, and during the pre-production stages he left on creative differences. There were definitely some things that happened during the production of this film that made this a very difficult film to bring to screen, not to mention the COVID pandemic that delayed the film by nearly 2 years coming out. So one of the things that Phoebe Waller-Bridge came in to do was to spice up the script. And but upon watching the film, what do you think she's brought to the package here? She is the writer and actress from Fleabag. I don't know if you've seen the television series Fleabag.
I have not.
She's also done Killing Eve. So these are two very high-profile television series that got high praise, massive amounts of high praise. And if you haven't seen those then, have you?
I haven't, I'm afraid.
Okay,
no.
So from my point of view, of being a fan of those television programs, things that I think she could bring to this film were trying to make this film less sexist in a way. You know, James Bond films do prolifically border on sex, and not even border. They do go down that road of actually being sexist. One of the main things that Cary Joji Fukunaga has gone on record actually saying was that there is a James Bond film, I can't remember which one it was, but there is some serious poor taste happening in it. And at that time, it was seen to be acceptable.
Yeah. It's a very different era now.
And Fukunaga has gone on record saying that he didn't want his film to be like that. And it's clear here with the way that this film unfolds that there are some very strong female characters in this film, and I mean very strong. And I think Waller-Bridge had a lot to do with that, possibly. And it was on Daniel Craig's request that she came in to do this. So I think... I mean, where are we going with that then? So
I mean, let's start with the cast. Let's have a look at the great cast we've got here. Obviously starring Daniel Craig, Rami Malek, Leah Seydoux, which is French. Hopefully I got that right. Lashana Lynch, Ralph Fiennes, Christoph Waltz, Ben Whishaw, Naomi Harris and Jeffrey Wright. I mean, just looking through that that tremendous selection of actors, the first thing to say about this film is that the casting is very, very strong. Obviously, we've got a number of people reprising their roles with Ralph Fiennes, Ben Whishaw as Q, Ralph Fiennes as M, Naomi Harris as Eve Moneypenny, Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter, and Leah Sado as Madeline Swan. So, I mean, where do you want to dive in with that? What was your this is obviously trying to be a non-spoiler review. What was your favourite? What was your favourite performance from there? And also, what did you think of Lashana Lynch, this sort of strong, black, empowering female role? Something very, very different. Obviously, a 00, the new 007, that's not giving anything away. That was in the trailer. What did you make of some of the casting here? And do you think that fits in with that narrative of that different sort of writers that were on board with this particular Bond?
So yeah, we'll start off with the new 00 agent that is presented to us, this strong black woman who is clearly somebody who could actually now go off and do a spin-off from this franchise. I think she was absolutely brilliant. I do feel like this is a character that came out of Waller-Bridge, perhaps, or as somebody who's come in here and said, right, we need to have a strong female character in here, and not just to go alongside like Naomi Harris, who plays Moneypenny, who I feel like got sidelined. You know, in I can't remember which one she was in, where she shot Bond in the leg.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
I think it might have been Quantum of Solace, you know.
Do you know what? I genuinely can't remember, so forgive us for that.
I can't remember.
But they do allude to that in this one as well, which is quite fun.
I think it is quite fun, but I do feel like she got sidelined a bit, where she had... I mean, it was great that Moneypenny was this character in this set of films to become... She does some action. She is a 00 agent almost to begin with, but then becomes the secretary, which I didn't quite like that. But to see a new character introduced, I thought, yeah, brilliant there. But standout performance-wise, it's got to be Daniel Craig. This is his last outing, and he gave it everything in this film. He is a machine. He is absolutely incredible. And could this be Daniel Craig's last opportunity, well, it is, to get an Oscar for Bond? Do you think he could be nominated?
No.
You don't think he could be nominated for this?
No, not a chance.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't know you were going to ask that, and it gives me a good opportunity to plug the show that I'll be going on very, very soon with my good buddies Mike, and Oscar. I'm going to be going on their show. We're going to be doing a James Bond review. Should be their traditional format, non-spoiler first half, and then a real deep dive spoiler second half. I'm sure if you ask those guys the same question, James Bond has never been nominated for an Oscar, and I just see there's no... Look, this is a very good Daniel Craig performance. This is a very layered Bond. This is very much like we spoke about in Casino Royale. This is an emotional Bond, a more fragile Bond, a much more human Bond than that sort of killing machine we've seen in other films. But the chances of him being nominated for Best Actor are very, very slim, almost zero, I would say. Really? Yeah. Why did it strike you as a sort of an Oscar kind of
performance? Perhaps. I feel like it's the Academy may award or nominate Craig for his contribution to angle. Bond. I think like as an all-rounded perspective, this has been the best Bond we may have had, bar maybe Sean Connery. Yeah. But the Academy have never awarded that. I mean, musically, yes, they have. Yeah. But I feel like this could be... There is an opportunity. I think there could be a nomination. I don't think there could be a win, but I feel like he could be nominated just for the sake of being like, well done, pat on the back sort of thing. Good to see you well done. Come again another time, maybe one day.
I wholeheartedly disagree. It's a stacked up category already. Will Smith is the current bookmaker's favourite for King Richard. You've got other big performances in that category. It just won't happen.
I wouldn't rule out a nomination at least.
I would.
Okay. All right.
But forgive me, I also forgot to mention Christoph Waltz as Blofeld. So let me just briefly touch upon. I've said Craig's Bond. Really good. Christoph Waltz, I love Christoph Waltz. Loved him in Django Unchained. Loved him in Inglourious Bastards.
2 Tarantino films.
Loved him he's multilingual. I hope that's the right word. So he speaks a number of different languages and he does it very well. But what he does is he commands the screen. And when he's on screen in this film, he really holds you. And there's, again, non-spoiler, it's in the trailer, one particular scene where Bond and Blofeld meet up. And that's tense. It's beautifully shot, but it's a real tense. You feel like a fly on the wall looking in at these two men that have a history, that have a past. I thought Christoph Waltz as a bad guy was really good, and that sort of leads me on to, what did you make of Rami Malek's performance? Because I'll be honest, I haven't been reading reviews, but I've been flicking through Twitter and I have seen the odd thing, and some people are saying it's a bit of a one-dimensional performance. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't say it's one-dimensional, but I will say it's a very... His character is a very strange character, and he doesn't... I feel like they've brought in Waller-Bridge to increase the female aspect to the film, like giving them more... I don't know, more dimensions to the female characters, and they've kind of forgotten about the antagonist in the film. Yes,
I agree.
And Rami Malek's performance may not be bad, but I do feel like his character is underdeveloped. And it's a shame because Rami Malek is a fantastic actor, and I feel like he wasn't given enough here to really be a great Bond villain. There is a lot lacking here. He is a very atypical Bond villain and just not explored enough. We get a bit of backstory to it, not enough.
Yeah.
I feel like there could have been a lot more with the plot where it's... I don't want to give too much away.
Try not to give anything
where it's
away.
Interwoven with another character within the film. There wasn't enough spoken about it. There wasn't enough seen or told that really gave us this antagonist needs to die. I
totally get what you're saying there, yeah.
Always in a Bond film, there's some, well, not always, but there is an antagonist that has a weapon that threatens the world, essentially, and Bond is the one that comes in to fix it. The stakes are raised a lot more in this film for various reasons. There is an emotional attachment here that gets Bond very heavily invested in this antagonist. There is also the aspect of where this weapon has come from that Malek's character acquires. Yeah. And it's the capabilities of this weapon that, again, feels very underdeveloped and very easily written to provide a way of murdering many people in one go. And it's almost impossible to believe that this is real when this set of films have grounded us in how real things can be within these films. So this weapon seems a bit far-fetched for me to actually think that this is well written, if you see what I mean.
Totally understand what you're saying there. Isn't it strange, Craig, that you're looking at a 2-hour, 43-minute running time, I think, off the top of my head, may have got that wrong, that you have an underdeveloped bad guy? Like, you would think... one of my... sort of talking about our hopes and aspirations for the films, and one of my concerns going into the film was, is this going to be too long? We'll get onto that later. But in fact, it almost... some of the character development feels a little bit rushed. In terms of Madeleine Swan, I like what they did with her character. Ralph Fiennes as M. I just think he brings. I struggle sometimes to not see Lord Voldemort.
I know.
Just Harry Potter is dead.
Or
You know,
Bond, come to die.
yeah, exactly. I don't know why, because he's in so many incredible films, but whenever I see him, particularly when he gets angry, I just think of angry Lord Voldemort.
That's quite funny.
And you could say the same about Ben Whishaw. Obviously, a lot of people just hear Paddington Bear, Naomi Harris, Jeffrey Wright. I mean, you did a really good impression of him off air. But in terms of the characters here and the performances, because I did want to move on, I think they're all very, very solid. I think for me, the standout performances are from Lashana Lynch as Nomi. I think she's really, really strong. Just to say that the producer of No Time to Die has actually said that James Bond, as far as she's concerned, is a male character. And she has said that a woman won't portray the spy going forward, and also that she wouldn't discuss Craig's replacement until 2022. Just to slip that in there. I know Craig wants to just touch upon something there, I think.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish that James Bond is a male.
Yeah.
And I think 007 can be a female.
Yeah.
And I think they've proven that within this movie. But to replace James Bond as Jane Bond, it doesn't feel natural or right, or I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it would work. I mean, it may. You must have the right writers and the right directors and the right casting to make it work, but it is going to be a real challenge to make that work. I genuinely believe that James Bond will always be James Bond.
I agree.
But there is no reason not to have a strong female 007.
Yeah.
Who could be another female, and they have proved it.
Yeah.
So why not?
I mean, we're both singing off the same hymn sheet in the sense that we want to see more female directors, we want to see more female producers, we want to see more females given opportunity in film. That doesn't necessarily mean that the James Bond franchise has to be taken over and led by a female. That's my personal opinion. I know other people have different ones. We've touched a little bit upon the acting. I just wanted to touch, again, non-spoiler, on that opening, what did you call it in the notes?
A title sequence.
Opening title sequence. I'm going to go straight in and just say I thought the opening title sequence was absolutely fantastic. One of my favourite in the Daniel Craig era. Just really, really good. Really good drama, really good script, really good plot, some absolutely stunning...
Really good plot.
Yeah, no, just really, I know, really good plot. Do you know what I mean, though? In the sense that you want a story that immediately grabs you, and the way this story begins just interested me immediately. It had my attention.
I'm just curious as to sort of just make sure I understand what you're talking about. So the opening title sequence you're talking about is the bit with the music over the top, Billie Eilish's song "No Time to Die."
Everything before that and through that.
Okay, so that beginning part,
yeah,
isn't the title sequence.
My apologies.
I would say that's just the opening part of the film, and then it goes into that title sequence.
Okay, sorry, I should have been clearer.
So it's all right. So that title sequence that we see, we've had this since Casino Royale. We have this animated, silhouetted Bond, followed by lots of animated, strange things that are correlated to the plot of the film, and it always seems to do that. And I think this one, no less, is brilliant. But my favourite one, I think, was Skyfall. I think the music for Skyfall was absolutely spot on with Adele's theme. I think that was one of my favourite ones. And then Billie Eilish comes in here with a song that I think it's very captivating. I think it works over the title sequence, but as a standalone song, I don't feel like it works quite so well. It takes almost a minute and a half to actually pick up into anything. I think she's a fantastic musician, and her brother, who also writes most of the songs and mixes and produces them, I think he's absolutely brilliant as well, and they're a great team, and I see a long career for those guys. But yeah, this I think the title sequence for this one is one of the best. Casino Royale is my favourite, definitely.
Maybe I should have been clearer. What I was referring to is the opening of the film then.
Yeah, so
Maybe
the
I should-
opening of the film and not the title sequence.
Yeah, my apologies. Just some of the shots of the Aston Martin DB5 in the mountain, and there's some great cinematography with a motorbike scene, and it's just good stuff. And it was just that opening, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just said, here's No Time to Die, sit back, get prepared, and get your popcorn ready because you're in for a bit of a thrill ride. And I just touched upon it there, and that leads us nicely onto our sort of next segment, and that was the cinematography. So when I watched the trailer for this No Time to Die, I thought, oh, there's a couple of really nice bits of cinematography there. The bit where Bond goes up some steps over a bridge on his motorbike, a bit where there's some operatives walking up the side of a building with the sun either rising or setting in London in the background, and also that bit where our Bond villain is shooting through the ice, and we've got that low shot of the bullets coming through the ice. And I thought this cinematography looks really, really good. And then I did a bit of research, and the cinematography comes from Linus Sandgren. He's actually an Academy Award winning Swedish cinematographer. He won his Oscar for La La Land, but he also did the cinematography on American Hustle, and I think most importantly, First Man. Like, I thought there was a lot of First Man style shots in this film. And what do I mean by that? That close-up, personal, very intimate cinematography that we got of Ryan Gosling in First Man.
Yeah, so it's important to remember that this film is shot for IMAX as well. So Linus Sandgren has lots of experience with First Man shooting with IMAX cameras, but also modifying the cameras to allow them to get very intimate with Ryan Gosling in the cockpit of the planes that he was flying in that bit.
And obviously the Apollo moon missions
exactly.
as well.
So, and the cinematography in that film is extraordinary. It translates well into No Time to Die, I think, and there are some outstanding shots, but I think also it's the choreography in this film as well.
Yeah.
I think that sort of leads us into like the action as well in some respects. So the choreography that goes hand in hand with the cinematography and the movement of the actors and the fight scenes, it's really well done. And I think this is one of the most heavy combated, hand-to-hand combated Bonds that we've seen in a while. And I think Daniel Craig is excellent.
Yeah, it's intimate.
It's very intimate.
It's personal.
It is. And what got me is that again, during the production, he actually broke his ankle.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so it was really bad. And there was only one scene that I noticed this, and I noticed it before I knew that he had actually broken his ankle during production. And it was a scene where he was running in that opening 15-minute scene before the title sequence kicked in. That there was a scene where he was running as fast as he could, and it really looked noticeable that he had injured himself. But I don't. Did you notice that at all?
I must say I didn't. I was just so awestruck by the size of this IMAX screen, having not been in the IMAX for quite some time.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. But it's little things like that once you notice them, I mean, if I rewatch it for a third time, I will look out for that. And yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on about the action sequences. I just thought they looked, not only that opening sort of 10-15 minutes, but throughout the whole film, they were beautifully shot. Like we said, the cinematography was nice, but they just looked very, very well done. And they just looked very sleek and clean. Like, this looked like the biggest of big budget Hollywood films. Like, we see a lot of films, even the bad ones, so you don't have to. And we see a lot of, not low budget, but medium budget films that you think, yeah, the action's okay. But what stands out here is incredible action.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's silly at times, but you know what? It's great silly, and it's fun silly, and it's extraordinary silly, and it's great. It really is, and it was so good to be back in the IMAX and be back in a cinema full of people. It wasn't completely sold out, but it was sold out enough to enjoy with an audience. It wasn't Endgame at midnight.
Yeah,
that was incredible when we saw that.
People were literally cheering.
Yeah, I mean,
shouting.
Exactly. People were whooping. People were in awe of what was happening and unfolding in front of them. People weren't in awe here because I don't think the audience was big enough to get that reaction.
No.
Like, but I was astounded, and the sound in this film, especially from the IMAX, just engulfed you.
Well, that's something that I wanted to touch upon. You mentioned Daniel Craig's Oscar chances, and this is something I really look forward to talking to Mike and Oscar about. What do they think No Time to Die could do come Oscars Sunday? Like, sound for me, we used to have 2 categories, now it's just sound. Like, I don't know if there will be a better sound design on a movie in the next couple of months. Like, I thought the sound design on this was fantastic. One particular, again, it's not a spoiler, moment where there's an explosion and Bond can't really hear. Just, you're literally put inside of his head. You know that when you hear a big bang and then you literally have that whistling, we're literally put inside of James Bond's head. The guns, the sound of the screeching tires, just the overall levels and layers in the IMAX. The sound of this movie just completely blew me away. You would know more about the technical side of it than
I was
me.
going to say, that was very reminiscent of Sound of Metal, where we are inside his head, we hear what he hears, and that was really, really great to see in this film. And it's like taking a smaller budget film and taking their techniques and implanting it into a huge Hollywood film. Whether that was right and just or not, in that sense, it was nice to sort of see it implemented and woven into a film of this sort of this magnitude. What else can we say about this film without spoiling it, though?
I mean, I think we've done a tremendous job, really. Have we spoke about the pace of the film? I can't quite remember. Forgive us if we have. I don't think we have.
No, we haven't yet.
What did you think of the pace of it? Because I saw one tweet today that said this was the worst paced James Bond film ever.
But I would disagree with that.
I would totally disagree with that. So why did I mention earlier that I've watched this film twice? Well, I've watched this film twice in under 24 hours, and at no point in either viewing was I bored. My opinion then is that's a well-paced film, and if you can go almost back to back, I watched this last night at midnight, today at 2:30, literally 12 hours apart. If you can do that and enjoy it, I actually preferred it on a rewatch. I think this film improves for a rewatch.
Did you see it in IMAX again then?
I saw it in screen 3, which is basically the super screen. So I didn't see it in, which kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, it's near enough, I guess.
Yeah. It's a big screen. Craig's shaking his head. It's not super screen, but it's our local cinema. It's a big screen. But I didn't, to answer your question, no, I didn't see it in the IMAX.
Good.
But it was a hell of a big screen.
Yeah.
I will say that. But yeah, upon a rewatch, I actually thought this was really well paced in the sense that you have that action sequence, then it pulls you in with a bit of drama, then you have a bit more of a plot development, and then it really slows down with that scene, for example, between Bond and Blofeld, and then it picks up again with another action sequence. I thought the film was really well paced. It didn't feel 2 hours 43. No. Felt about an hour 43. So that, in my opinion, and if anything, there could have been more here. So I think it did a very good job on the editing front as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to look at the pace, just let me analyse that a little bit more. That like this film has, again, the most emotional Bond that we've seen, and that's going to slow down the film a little bit if we want to see that emotion. We get it in buckets, just so many emotional parts to the film, and it's saying goodbye in lots of different ways. And in one of the ways that we see that happening is the way that we say goodbye to friends, perhaps, that we've seen throughout the franchise, and it's not like goodbye, but it's like these people might not reprise the role that they've had. So, like, Ben Whishaw is probably not going to reprise the role of Q, and he's gone on record to say that. And I feel like he's really went out with a bang in this film. Like, he really played a real true emotional part within the film. Jeffrey Wright as well with Felix Leiter. I feel like he played a really great friend throughout the film, around the
series,
Craig series, and he gets a really great scene in this film as well that I loved, and I love Jeffrey Wright anyway.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, he's got a great voice. He's currently like narrating What If, the TV series on Disney Plus for Marvel. He plays the Watcher, who basically narrates and sees everything. It's brilliant.
There's so much stuff that I need to watch on
I
Disney
know,
Plus.
so
I
much.
pay for Disney Plus and I barely ever use it.
Well, you should use it
I just
more.
watch the same films again and again and the same documentaries. I'm a terrible human being, and I wonder why I don't get enough time to squeeze in more films. But
yeah, but yeah, like what I'm saying about the pacing is that there is this emotional, like, characters saying goodbye to each other almost, and it doesn't slow down the film though. But you have to put the brakes on a little bit to get that emotional connection. But there's always action followed by these things that happen, and I loved it in that sense. I loved the pacing because I was always engaged, always connected to the characters, and always just enjoying the silliness of the action as well. And yeah, wicked stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job, I will say, without spoiling it, I think. And are we going to finish it with the usual, is it worth it?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah. So, unless you have anything further to add,
I don't think I do.
Other than we mentioned costume, hair, and makeup, that was all on point. You know, the costume design in this film, Craig looks sharp. The ladies look good. The hair and makeup's on point as well.
Could we say anything about the ending?
No,
without spoiling it.
No,
you reckon not?
No. I think we've done really, really well. And
Can I not say one thing?
No, you cannot. I refuse to allow you to go 30 minutes of doing a non-spoiler review and then you ruining it. So no, you will not say a single word.
Okay.
I have spoken.
Not even one thing?
No, because I don't know what you're going to say. And if
it's one word. One word.
No, because you'll ruin it.
I won't.
Craig.
I won't ruin it.
Why do you need to say one word?
Wow.
Okay. Well,
did I ruin it?
No. Okay. Well, literally, if you don't, wow. If you want to say wow, you can say wow. What did I think of the ending? Find out on Mike and Oscar in the spoiler section, because I literally don't want to say anything about what I thought of the ending, other than Craig. No Time to Die. Is this worth seeing, and is it worth seeing in the cinema?
Yes, this is definitely worth seeing in the cinema. This is the film that is going to bring back cinema goers to the big screen. We already know that this film is going to be sold out from Friday onwards, more or less. Pre-sales are high on the film. It is going to be huge. Shang-Chi is currently the biggest grossing box office film in the world for 2021. I believe Bond can outdo that 100%.
I think you're probably right. And is it, people will think, is it worth the price of a cinema ticket, or did you just answer that question?
Basically, yes, I did. It is so worth going to see in the cinema.
Fair enough. I apologise for my buffoonery. Would you like to ask me the question?
David, No Time to Die. Is it worth it?
Yeah, for all the reasons we've outlined, I think this is not only worth seeing in the cinema, I think this is worth seeing on the biggest screen possible, whether that's Super Screen or IMAX, or I don't know if it's in 4DX or any of these other fancy modern kind of screenings. Go and see it in the cinematic environment. I think the cinematography in this is some of the nicest I've seen of any Bond film. I think the performances are great. I think the pace is on point. The sound design is tremendous. Yeah, don't want to say anything about the ending, but this film is worth seeing in the cinema, so go and see it at your local picture house.
Well, thank you for listening to our special episode dedicated to all things Bond and our review of No Time to Die.
We appreciate you, the listener, and we'd like to thank you for joining us on this episode.
If you have anything you wish to share about James Bond, the James Bond franchise, or in fact the new film No Time to Die, then you can email the show at mymail@isitworthitpodcast.com. That email address again is mymail@isitworthitpodcast.com.
Follow us on social media at Film Is Worth It on Twitter, or search for Is It Worth It on Facebookery and Instagram. Get involved with us on social media. We love it.
Yeah, we do. If you're listening online through the website, you can subscribe to the podcast using Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all good podcasting apps.
And if you've enjoyed the podcast, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
Would appreciate that.
Okay, that wasn't in the script. But yes, please do. We really value your wonderful feedback and appreciate all your reviews.
Craig, it's been an absolute honour, as always, and all that leaves me to say is, he's been Craig Fields.
I thought you were going to do he's been Fields. Craig
Okay,
Fields.
let me go for it again.
Do it again.
And he's been Fields. Craig Fields.
And he's been long gone. No, David Long.
We always have to end on a bad joke, and this has been Is It Worth It?
The film review podcast, James Bond special.
And
We
breathe.
didn't even practice that.
No, we didn't. Anyway, that's the end of the show, guys. Thanks very much for listening, and we will see you very, very soon.